So welcome. So tonight we're going to be talking about koans. A koan is part of Zen practice meant to challenge logical thinking and encourage you to transcend the ordinary linear thought process. It could be a statement, a short phrase, a question, or a story which causes you to seek deeper understanding about the nature of reality. I've often said that to attain enlightenment, you must see your mind. That is a koan. But what does it mean? What is your mind? How can you see it? You have a body, right? You know you can look down and see it. You can also look in a mirror if you want to see your face. We all understand that we have a mind, but how can you see it? This is the most difficult koan I can give you. In Zen, we say that when you can see your mind, that is getting enlightenment. Many people have tried to find the answer to this koan, but very few have been successful in their lifetime. This koan is like a seed. If you want the seed to grow and get sunlight, first you need to clear out all of the weeds in the garden. If you want to find the answer to this koan, you must first clear out all of the thoughts in your mind so the seed can grow. So today, we'll be meditating together to try to clear out our minds. So before we meditate, let's start with a breathing technique that can help you relax and prepare your body for meditation. Start by breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than you usually do. Visualize your heart in the center of your chest as you breathe. As you listen to me, I want you to slow down your breath a little more and breathe a little bit deeper. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and collecting all of the energy from your brain and moving it from your head to your heart. Imagine now that you're breathing with your heart. The purpose is to try to align our mind, heart, and body. You can also place your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you'd like. And keep breathing like this as I talk. This is a technique you can use to relax or reset yourself whenever you feel nervous or anxious, or whenever you feel like you need to switch gears from different activities you're doing throughout the day. You can use it when you wake up, before you enter a stressful meeting, before you go to sleep, or before you meditate. So let's just take a few more moments to take a few slow and deep breaths. Tonight, when we meditate, we're going to turn around and face the wall, sitting with our legs crossed. And you're going to keep your back and neck straight. Try not to slouch. That helps so you don't feel tempted to fall asleep. Your eyes are going to be closed, but if they were open, they'd be looking at the floor at a 45-degree angle. We're going to have our hands, right hand, left hand, touching thumbs, centered in our lap. If you get uncomfortable while you're meditating, you can stretch out and stand up. Just try to be respectful of the people around you meditating. In traditional Zen meditation, a mantra is used to clear the mind. The mantra is the focal point of meditation, usually a word or a phrase that's repeated over and over within your mind. If you try not to think, thoughts will inevitably come into your mind. By focusing on a mantra, you can use it to push out all of the other thoughts. As you meditate, only concentrate on your mantra. If another thought comes into your mind, let it pass and return to focusing on your mantra. A good mantra to use during meditation practice is Kwansam Bosal. Kwansam Bosal is the name of the bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. She's often depicted with thousands of eyes and thousands of hands, and is said to be able to see the suffering of everyone and help those who call out her name. Using this mantra will bring compassionate energy towards you while you meditate. So let's turn around and we'll meditate for 20 minutes or so. Today's talk is about koans. So I'll be asking a lot of questions. Please feel free to share your thoughts. We can have a little back and forth. For starters, I have a question for all of you. If you're feeling sad or depressed or lonely, what is the best thing you can do for yourself? Any ideas? Anyone want to share?
Just feel sad.
Well, I don't know if that helps, but sometimes it's just what happens.
I like to talk to someone.
That's good.
Friend
Yeah,
or therapist.
very good. Very good advice.
But yeah, talking just helps me get out of the negative thinking and try to see some positive into the situation.
Absolutely good advice.
Exercise.
Exercise, excellent.
Like getting fresh air, just like going out for a walk.
Getting fresh air, going for a walk. I'm repeating it because it doesn't always pick it
Yeah.
up on the microphone.
Taking a shower or a bath, like kind of
Yeah.
like cleansing, like washing away that like.
Taking a shower or a bath.
Yeah.
That's very good. I like that.
Weed the garden.
Weeding the garden. Ooh, there's a metaphor in there from the beginning of class.
I pray if I'm like feeling really down in the dumps.
Praying, very good.
Yeah.
All right. All really good suggestions. I think I'll make a few suggestions too. Making sure you're well rested and doing some meditation can help. I think a lot of the stuff you named could be considered meditation, like weeding the garden, going for a walk, doing things like that. But I would suggest that if you're feeling that way, sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to help someone else who needs it. My experience is that when I sincerely try to help someone, it makes me feel better than anything else. I think sometimes just seeing how that affects them reflects back on you. That good feeling that comes from helping someone else, it seems to last longer than any kind of treat I could buy myself or anything else I can do for myself. But, don't take my word for it. Try it out the next time you feel down. Even if it doesn't work for you, at least you'll brighten up someone else's day. But I suspect it'll work. Sometimes people don't always appreciate help, but, try and find someone, someone who's showing that they need help. Yeah, and and don't help anybody who's like trying to rob a bank. Try and help people who you think are gonna use it and do good with that. So here's a new koan for you. Where's the only place from where you can see the past, the present, and the future?
My mind.
Very good. It is in your mind. You're getting it. You're getting where I go with a lot of the answers are the same. Now, can anyone answer the question from the beginning of class? What is your mind? Any thoughts? How about this one? Where is your mind?
Everywhere.
Oh, I like that answer. I like that answer. A lot of people think it's in their body or their brain. I like everywhere. I think that's pretty close Um,
Try to keep them out of the gutter.
oh, keeping it out of the gutter, always good, always a good idea. It's interesting. If you're thinking a lot, it feels like your mind is in your head, right? But if you stub your toe, all of a sudden it feels like your mind is in your toe. At the same time, you can let your mind wander to events that you've experienced in the past, and it feels like your mind is there. So I think, maybe everywhere all at once. You can also imagine the future and think what it might look like. If you close your eyes and you use your imagination, it can feel like your mind is in another part of the universe. That's pretty amazing. But where is your mind then? It can be all of those places, right? All at once. Where was your mind before you were born? Any thoughts on that? How about after you die? Where does your mind go? So these are all koans. If you can see your mind, you'll know what it is, and you'll know the answer to all of these questions. That's awakening. That is enlightenment. Here's the truth. I already know the answer. I've already told you most of what I know. But my words have limitations, and they can be misinterpreted. So I'll continue to try and describe and help you to the best of my ability. Now, you can choose to doubt what I say, or you can believe it. It really doesn't matter to me. But I suggest that you think about it deeply and question everything I've told you. If you believe what I say, then you could probably just go around and repeat everything I told you. But that won't really be helpful to you. If you want to know the truth, you have to prove it to yourself. If you really understand the truth about your mind, then you'll believe it 100%. And anything I say won't really matter to you. So my friend Peter, he teaches Zen in Pennsylvania. I think you might know him. He sent me a koan that he read the other day. And I read it. He was wondering my thoughts on it. It seemed a little confusing to me the way it was worded. And I wonder if it's due to the translation, or perhaps it was originally intended to be that way. Either way, when I give a koan, I don't want to make it any more complicated than it needs to be. I want to make it as clear as possible using simple words and analogies so that you can understand it. That's because I'm trying to be helpful. These concepts and ideas such as enlightenment, they already transcend words, so I try not to make it more difficult to understand than it already is. So with that said, I'm going to read the koan I was referring to. It's from Zen Master Yunmen. I'm not sure exactly when he lived, but it was at least a few hundred years ago. And it's translated by App. It's a conversation between a Zen master and an official, and it goes like this. An official asked, "Is it true that Buddha Dharma is like the moon in the water?" The master replied, "Even a pure wave has no way of penetrating through to the moon. The official pressed on. "By which way did you reach it, Reverend?" The master answered, "Where did you get this second question from?" The official went on, "How about my situation right now?" The master said, "The road across this mountain pass is completely blocked. So that's it. Ooh. What does this story mean to you? Do you find it clear or confusing?
Yeah, I missed the first question.
What does the story mean to you? Or in the story he says, is it true that the Buddha Dharma is like the moon in the water? The Buddha Dharma is like the teachings of Buddha.
The moon and the water?
The moon in the water.
Ah, I see.
The moon
Oh,
in.
the reflection?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the teaching of Buddha is like the moon in the water.
The universe or something.
Yeah. Anyway, I bring this up. I think it's a little bit confusing. In the footnotes, the translator added some thoughts. I'm going to read these. And I don't know, maybe I'm just reading a confusing example, but I wanted to see what other people think of it. Make sure it's not just me. The teachings of Buddha and of the Chan masters are regarded as aids that can be, depending on the circumstances, which change like waves in the water, take on various forms. All teachings point towards one's own awakening, the moon. One is thus warned not to mistake the teaching device, the pointing finger, or in this case, the reflection of the moon in the water, for the ultimate goal. What do you think of that? Does that help at all? A little bit. I still found it pretty confusing. I spent a while thinking about it, but I find myself agreeing with some of the sentiment expressed by the translator, but I actually interpret the metaphors and the intended lesson of Master Yunmen in a slightly different way. I actually think the translator missed the ball a little bit. Because to me, the moon is not enlightenment. The moon is the moon. It can't actually be in the water without causing a major catastrophe. The reflection of the moon in the water is Buddha Dharma. The Dharma teachings say that to attain enlightenment, you must be like the water reflecting the moon. That means that the water must be completely still. Any wave or ripple in the water will distort the reflection. The water represents your mind, and in order to truly reflect the universe, your mind must be completely still. Any thoughts, including those which are well-intentioned, will cause waves, and they'll distort the ability of your mind to become a perfect reflection of the universe. To do this, your mind must be completely clear and still, like the water reflecting the moon. The official in the story, then he wants to know how the master attained enlightenment. And the master says the path up the mountain is blocked. Here, the master's telling him, or them, that they must climb the mountain to get enlightenment. But the path the master took is no longer there. So you can't just follow the same path as the master. You must find your own path to enlightenment. In other words, a Zen master can show you the way to the mountain and tell you that you must climb it. Maybe they can also give you some techniques and advice for your journey, but ultimately you have to do the work to get to the summit. That's why I tell you to always question what I tell you. The best I can do for you is to offer my most sincere guidance based on my experiences. But you have to determine the right way for you. I'm trying my best to help you along the way, but ultimately, you must climb the mountain on your own, and you have to find your own way to get to the top. When I give you a koan, it's a question for you to answer. Hopefully that will help you find what you're looking for. If I give you the answer, then you might just take my word for it, and that won't get you where you need to go. Whenever I give you my answer to the koan, that's just my perspective in the context of my experiences. If you want to understand the underlying truth in a koan, you need to find the answer, and you need to prove it to yourself. With that said, I'm going to leave you with one more koan for today. If you reach the top of a mountain, how can you continue to ascend? If you're at the top, any direction you step will be a step down. At that point, how can you become one with the sky and the universe? If you can find the answer to this koan, you can find your path to enlightenment. I wish you good fortune in that journey and good luck finding the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for me tonight?
I mean, what do you think about that koan?
What do I think about that koan?
Yeah.
The one from the book?
No, this one that you just asked us.
Do you want my answer?
Well, yeah.
I'll give it to you. It's not like a secret I'm trying to keep or anything. It's more of a question. Well, let me. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, if you don't believe so you're saying, what was the second question? How do you get to the sky or whatever?
Yeah, how do you continue to ascend when you get to the top of the mountain? And
Just believe that you're never at the top. Or, like, it could be like in your mind.
at that point, if you want to become one with the sky and the universe, if you want to reflect the moon, how do you continue to ascend?
Fly away.
Perhaps if you're a bird, that might work. But how do you... They have the limit of the sky. The universe is still beyond that. This is my koan, so I made this one.
I think when you get to the top of the mountain, you keep climbing.
Well, you get to the top, if you keep moving, you start going down.
Climb down.
Then you're going down.
Still climb.
But how do you continue to ascend?
Build something on top of the mountain.
Okay, there's...
Higher.
Yeah. Those are all very practical attempts at answering it, right? So the idea is to try and think about it differently. So I've said this at different times, where when you reach the limit of where you can go, when you hit walls, when you feel like there's no direction you can go, like, even I've said before, even if you're in prison, you can get enlightenment. So it doesn't require that you move your body, right? So it requires that you try and find a different direction. And so where's that direction? Inside. It's in your mind. And there's only one way to get there, and that's through meditation. So there's a lot of koans and things and little challenges that are like mountains, you know, and you have to continue to try and answer those to get a better perspective of where you're trying to look. But ultimately, you have to turn your attention inward, and that's where the path is. And, you know, so going back to that koan where he said the mountain path is blocked, you can't go there. Because my path, if I'm the Zen master in this situation, my path was through my mind, meditating. And that way, you can't get there that way. You have to go through your mind. And so I'm kind of showing you the technique, but you ultimately have to do that work. to get there. So the mountain is to keep trying to clear your mind, keep trying to make your mind still. And like I said, most people, a lot of people try, a lot of monks try. They try for years and years and years, and they don't get there. And they dedicate a lot of their life to it, you know. And I don't, if you don't get there in this lifetime, you have more lifetimes to do it in. So it's not like the end of the road. And it's still progress. So it's not like pass or fail. It's like you keep making progress and you keep going in that direction and you keep working. And my experience has been the more I meditate, the clearer my mind gets. And even if I don't see my mind, it makes all the rest of my life easier because I'm perceiving things with a clear mind. I'm more often coming up with the correct action to take in certain situations. So, so if you have a lot on your mind, you know, maybe someone cut you off in traffic in the way here and you get upset, and then you go into the store and you're still upset, and then someone bumps into you and then you get upset at them, even though, like, because you're still carrying stuff from your last encounter. So that's why I'm just trying to emphasize, that's why keeping your mind clear is really important, because then you can react to every situation and every moment with the proper response, and it's not being tainted by something that happened to you before. So that's just a real practical reason to meditate and keep your mind clear. But I'm also trying to point you and motivate you that there's this whole other realm of your mind that we go through the day and we kind of don't acknowledge it, right? Because you're so concerned with the material world and everything that's happening in front of you, and rightly so. That's your survival is dependent on that. But it also, when you're focused so much on that, you lose perspective of the bigger picture. And trying to fulfill your the needs, your spiritual needs, if you will, and that becomes important because all of the things that are important to you, that are, I mean, not, how do I say this? The things that are probably most valuable are not material to you a lot of times, and it's important to kind of keep that bigger perspective. So when little things happen or big things happen, you can kind of reset and reevaluate what's important. And I think the reason I kind of push this way of thinking is because I think in our society, we become so obsessed with material things. And I don't just mean money, I just mean like the survival kind of things sometimes, you know, just surviving. And it causes people to get sad and depressed. And I think if you're healthy and you have people who love you, you're probably forgetting about a lot of the things that are most important, you know. And it's good to, if you have a more clear mind, you'll be more aware of that, and you'll put more energy into having love in your heart and to being compassionate to other people, and then those relationships will grow and you end up in a much better situation. And I mean, I've made some decisions in my life that would be considered, you know, maybe bad decisions by some people's standards, because I actually like left a job that paid really well to pursue this kind of spiritual path. And yeah, I think my grandmother, for instance, thought I was crazy. But I ended up with I ended up in a much better situation. I definitely don't have, you know, monetary resources in the way I probably would have if I had stuck with that job, but I ended up with a lot of good people around me. And yeah, and when I've needed something, it's always been there. So it's a matter of, what do you need, you know? And when you really understand that, you don't need as much. And then when you really need something, it's there for you. And there's a little bit of faith involved in that, but I think if, you know, most of what you need is really, you know, food, shelter, clothing, and then people who love you. I think anything beyond that is a bonus. But I think if you have those things, you'll definitely feel blessed in your life. And keeping your mind clear will just help you keep your priorities straight, and you'll see like, oh, you'll have a better sense of how to make decisions in your life. And yeah, so I think people have kind of lost touch with this idea a lot of times. I think sometimes they know it, but also it's not always reflected in their actions. And I see a lot of sadness and suffering, you know. So I'm just trying to add a different perspective. You know, you have to do things to survive and to feed yourself and to feed your family. That's all understandable. But if you spend your whole time just trying to make money and then you don't spend any time with your family, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So there's a balance in there. I'm just trying to encourage people. I think the balance in our society has gone way too far in one direction, and it just needs to be rebalanced. Both in our society, but also just in us as individuals. So I don't even remember what your question was, or what we were talking about. But
Your question.
my question.
The answer to your question.
Yeah. The answer to my question is yeah.
Is that English?
Koan. It's Korean. It's
Korean, okay.
yeah. It's spelt different ways,
Okay.
but that practice is used in Zen. So
Okay.
I said Chan Buddhist in this as earlier in the example I read. That's the same word as Zen. It's just the Chinese word.
Okay.
So depending on the culture, they might have different words, but the concept's still the same. And I generally use the Korean terms, but I know in like pretty much all branches of Zen, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean, they all have some form of koan practice. And it's not always the master telling you a question. Sometimes it's the universe putting something in front of you, and you have to come up with the right answer in that moment. And that's why we practice meditation, so that you can come up with the right answer in each moment. So like there's an example my teacher used to say, they'd put a cup on the table and say, "What is this?" And someone would say, "A cup." And he'd say, "Wrong." And then someone would see the cup, pour water in it, and take a drink. And then he would say, "Right answer." You want to hear the other one my teacher loved to say? He would ask, what is your name?
Yes.
Wrong. Now, you ask me, you try it on me.
What's your?
Ha! So now you try it.
But what does that mean? Like why do you do that?
Why do you do that?
Yeah.
What was your name before someone gave you a name?
Oh, just trying to say like.
So yeah, and then so if you ask me again, ha! And then you ask me, is that right?
Is that right?
No, my name is Sebastian. So that's the koan. He never gave me the answer. I can give you my take on it, but I can't give you the way I wrote it. I wrote this in my book too. I wrote this koan in my book. Is that if I give you the answer, you have one answer. If you figure out the name for yourself, you have 1,000 answers. So some are very confusing, but I think there's a lot of a lot of duality. You know, like you have a name that someone else called you, but what is your name? Right? Like what is it? What were you before you had a name? You were there for at least a moment before your parents gave you that name. So, what is the truth? It's ambiguous. And if you believe in the Zen Buddhist, more like generally Buddhist philosophy of reincarnation, you've had many names, many bodies, and many different identities. So, what is, maybe Gazi's the name of your body, but what is the name of your mind? Because, so these are the kind of things I think of when I hear that koan. But like I said, I've already given you 3 of my answers, so there's probably many more. Maybe there's a better one. I just like shouting, Did that scare you?
A little bit.
You should have heard when my teacher would do it. It was so loud.
Yeah.
He was very, very small man, but his voice would freeze you in your tracks. Yeah. I never wanted to have him yelling at me, I'll tell you that.
I heard him yell my name one day when I was like outside, but he was inside looking for me, and I was like, I heard him through the walls.
Yeah, any other questions? It's koan day, so good day for questions.
Is that the translation of the word question?
That's how I say it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a question. It's kind of like a riddle too,
Yeah.
like
Okay. I like it. I like how it makes you.
yeah, it's supposed to just make you, like I said, think outside of your normal train of thought. Like it's supposed to kind of break you out of the patterns that you've been in.
I can see that it'd be helpful for someone with like anxiety, like breaking away from that like negative thinking or.
Yeah. Yeah, just to get you out of that pattern of
Yeah.
your normal habits of thinking about things, to try and put you looking in a different direction. Like when I said, where do you turn when you're at the top of the mountain? How do you continue to go higher? Like you have to turn into a different direction. You have to think about it a little bit more. Yeah. But when you know the answer, you won't doubt it anymore. You won't have the kind of questions of, you know, when I say these questions, you might not have words that are an answer, but you'll know the answer, right? Because like if you could literally answer, where is the mind? We don't have a word in our vocabulary to really describe that, right? So you have to think out of your normal pattern of thinking to answer that. We haven't even. That was one of the challenges when I write about this, is there's no language to speak about these things. That's why I use metaphors a lot and analogies.
Why were we taught that the mind is the brain? Like, where did that, like, even...
Where do you think it came from? I wonder that too. But it's a pretty common misperception, right? But they're different words.
Is it just because we see it, like, here, and it's just...
My belief is that, if you look up the word mind and brain, they have two totally different definitions. I've done this because I was very curious about the same question. They have two totally different definitions in the dictionary. One is an organ in your body, and the other one, I don't remember exactly how they define it, but it's the things that make up your, in some definitions, it's like the things that make up your personality and things like that. But I think that, from what I can tell, the common misconception that the mind and the brain are the same things, I think it might be coming from science and the fact that they do neuroscience, things like that. They look at the brain while the mind is active, and they see different parts of the brain becoming active when you're thinking certain things. And so they say, oh, it's there. It's in there, right? It's in that part of the brain. It's stored in there. There's some sort of...
Heart can act differently too, right? Like other parts of your body.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to perhaps think about it, right? I think that there is a little bit of... well, I've said this before, but I don't think science is the right tool to study the mind, because it's not physical. And when science as a philosophy was started, it's only dealing with material objects and things that can be measured and data and things that can be collected. And the people who came up with the philosophy of science originally, they were also generally pretty religious. Some of the main scientists, whether they were like Muslim or Christian or other religions, people who were curious about the nature and how things worked, they purposely excluded everything metaphysical from that study, so that they could. So by definition, they're only studying material things that can be measured, data that can be collected about things happening. And so when you try and use it for something like the mind, it's not really equipped to do that. Like, how do you measure happiness? Right? You might make up a scale of 1 to 10, but how do you know that my 10 is the same as Jason's 10? There's a lot of gray area there, and I think another one that you can look into is like, what is consciousness? Like, what do scientists? This is kind of the cutting edge of science. They're trying to determine like, what is consciousness? What makes something conscious? And there's a lot of debate, and a lot of people think it's something unique to humans, perhaps, or some people think it applies to animals. But there's actually a lot of evidence, and I'd say most of the evidence from what I've seen is pointing to there's consciousness in everything, including particles. And that the way I say it is there's different types of consciousness, right? Human consciousness is different from animal consciousness. It's different from an amoeba's consciousness. But I'll go one step further, and I've said this before, like there's table consciousness, there's computer consciousness. Every object has its consciousness, and it has different levels of it. And that's why I think they like science will always be kind of taking it, looking at it from the wrong angle, because if you are coming at it from the perspective that your mind is in your brain, and so that your mind is coming from something physical, then you'll always have it backwards, because there was no brain until there was a mind that called it a brain, right? There was an organ there, but nobody gave that concept the value of brain until a mind observed it and said, that's a brain. And so for many, for a long time, people didn't know what was inside their body. And so you knew you had a mind, you didn't know you had a brain, until someone started, looking at what happens when people pass away, and they saw, oh, there's something in there. Maybe that's where it is. And if your idea is, all my thoughts are here, I kind of, like I said, when you're thinking a lot, feels like it's coming from your head. And then you see like someone's head split open on a rock or something, you say, oh, maybe that's where the mind is. But you can put all these things in your mind. Like I use this example as well. Like you put an apple in your mind, but you can't go in your brain and find an apple. Even, if you're conscious and just taking brain scans. So it's not in there. It's somewhere else. And I think that's like I think it's a dimension that we have yet to assign a concept to. And they're actually on the cusp of it right now in science. I don't know if this is like how the consensus comes about on this kind of stuff, but they're creating a new form of matter called data. So that because you can transfer data electronically and between computers and stuff. But where is that taking place? So where is that realm? Like that's not even a human consciousness, right? But you can transfer data between material objects electronically. So, and it has values that aren't material. So like that is, in order to deal with that, they're calling it a different form of matter. So, because you can transfer data with electricity, right? But it's not electricity. It's interesting. I think that's how they're gonna deal with it. They're gonna have to create new ways of thinking about it. And even for science, I think kind of thinking about these things, it gets beyond what you have the tools to apply. So you have to think about it differently. You have to come up with new methods to apply these things. And I think, a lot of the highest level of science becomes more like philosophy at some level, because you have to create some sort of way and some sort of method to deal with and measure these things. So, well, that was quite a tangent. anything else? It's getting kind of late, so not that I have anywhere to rush off to, but I know sometimes people want to get moving. So, but I enjoyed the conversation.